Well, Intel's incoming GPUs might actually not be even as good as earlier reported, as we get some clarifications on some marketing speak, some performance specs adjustments, supported systems, and the one of the performance numbers that we got reported on was an up to 25% faster than in RX 6400. Now, this is regarding Intel's A380. So what is the A380? So the Intel naming scheme, they have an A3 line, an A5 line, and an A7 line, similar to their CPUs having an i3, i5, and an i7. So the A3 is definitely not their top end, although the 80 at the end is saying that this is basically the top of their low-end A3 chips, if that makes any sense. Now, they gave us this performance graph with some frame rates they're hitting in like easy-ish to run esports titles. I've already reported on this, but again, this came along with a claim of up to 25% faster than in RX 6400 from AMD. And then we looked at that. Okay, well, relative performance, this is over at Tech Power Up's relative performance chart. Okay, 6400, set that as the baseline. Look for something in that, up to 25% faster that at least got close to GTX 1060 levels, that being about 30% faster. But of course, it was an up to, so we were thinking, well, most games won't quite be there. But now we're going to even downgrade that further, at least according here to what I'm seeing from 3D Center. Now, this is also translated from German, I believe. Used Google Translate here. But they're diving into this claim because they're saying that Intel's claim was not that it was just up to 25% better performance. It was up to 25% better performance per yuan, which means it's talking about price to performance, not just straight up performance. And so now jumping into what that then really means is, according to 3D Center's conversions here, I think I could zoom in on this a little bit and maybe get myself a little bit smaller out of the way. There. We've got the price range for the Arc A380 at around 1,031, while we have the Radeon RX 6400 at $1,199 retail. So if we set that as the baseline and then the up to 25% faster limit, then 3D Center is converting to what they're going to expect the real performance to only be about 104% of the RX 6400. Now, that's using, again, 3D Center's conversions, and this is all just based on Intel marketing claims. So we don't want to read way too much into this, but if it really was right there, it's basically going to be GTX 1650 performance levels. Now, I will say a little bit of good news here is that the, I don't think the only purpose for this GPU would be gaming. The fact that this could be low power draw, and it has an encoder and decoder, unlike the RX 6400. And actually, Intel has quite good encoding and decoding capabilities. So I think this could be really cool for some like home theater PC type setups, some kind of media streaming things. The 75 watt power spec means that there should be some models. Hopefully we'll see some low profile models that could go into a small form factor build. So it could still be cool uses for this, but its gaming performance looks like it might not even be as good as we were hoping, just based on the initial claim we saw. Now, 3D Center has also then used this to update their expectations for the entire series. So if we take a look at this, okay. So they had originally, a lot of people have been targeting the Arc A780. Remember, the A7 would be the top end, and kind of expecting that to compete with an RTX 3070. So they're, at least at 3D Center, downgrading their expectations to be slightly worse than a 3060 Ti on the top-end desktop model from Intel here. And then that means that they're going to downgrade everything else kind of in between here. So it looks like we'll be seeing a product stack that ranges from, remember, the A380 is the top of the A3 line. We still have cut down versions of that. So if we're correct on this performance here, being very, very close to an RX 6400, that means that these other models are going to be much slower than an RX 6400, which for gaming is very disappointing. this would put the the baseline A5 GPU at around an RTX 3050 performance, roughly. The 750, the baseline of the 7s, at around a 3060 performance. The 770 kind of between a 3060 and a 3060 Ti. And the 780 kind of competing with and maybe slightly worse than a 3060 Ti. So we'll see if 3D Center's claims end up being accurate. But this is a bit of a disappointment if this ends up being true. Now, a lot of the blame here seems to be on the drivers and just the software not being able to take advantage of the hardware that's built into the GPU, which at least could mean that these might age well as drivers mature. But we'll see how that goes. Now, another thing on this spec sheet we need to talk about is the A380 being listed originally with a 16 gigabit per second speeds on its memory, but that's being downgraded, and this is downgraded officially from Intel. So I'm seeing reported by video cards here, we're seeing a 15.5 being correct, and this is being actually updated on Intel's own listing. So this is not a rumor. This was originally reported at 16 gigabits per second, but then some people noticed that the Gunner card, the one I featured here, had been reported at 15.5 on its listing. So people were like, wait, is it not up to the official reference memory speed? Did they cut the memory? Well, it looks like actually the official reference was wrong, and it's now been corrected to 15.5. Also, Intel has clarified that HDMI 2.1 is available for the Arc A380, but it's up to board manufacturers whether or not they include it. And it looked like that Gunner version that we'd seen once again in this photo. We've got that one, I think, only being HDMI 2.0, whereas it's possible that we'll see 2.1s coming out. We'll see what happens. Now, in another bit of bad news for Intel Arc GPUs, we're seeing a system requirements list. So and this is officially from Intel, and we'll see how important this ends up being. But according to their official system requirements list for their Arc A series graphics cards, they're listing only very limited compatible processors and motherboards. They're listing 12th gen Intel processors with 600 series motherboards and with resizable bar enabled. And that's the thing here, is they're saying that resizable bar is a requirement, a system requirement. We'll see if it actually ends up working without it or what sort of performance hit they might take, but they are officially listing this as a requirement, not even just a, yes, we support resizable bar. 11th gen and 10th gen core processors with 500 and 400 series motherboards, again with resizable bar enabled. Now, if you're on an AMD motherboard, do notice that they say additional platforms and motherboards with resizable bar / smart access memory, in other words, AMD, enabled may also support Intel Arc A series graphics, so may also support. So this is a big red flag here that they're actually listing system requirements like this. Most GPU launches don't come with a very specific list of processors and motherboards that they support. So that is interesting. They're also saying motherboard requirements are full-size PCIe Express 3.0 or newer, and resizable bar. So, yeah, guys, I don't know. I've got so many questions about this Intel launch. But let's move on to Nvidia's new GPUs and their dreaded power requirements. So this is from our favorite. I've read through a lot of your comments trying to tell me how to pronounce this. Is it Gigabyte 7 Kimi? Gigabyte 7 Kimi. Gigabyte 7 Kimi. Maybe that was it. I don't know. I'm trying, guys. Anyway, so they're saying power limits of the AD102, that would be the top end. So this would be expected to be like your RTX 4090 class at 800 watts. Now, please notice we're talking power limits here, not the normal power draw targets, okay? So power limits could be like how far an overclocked model could be pushed. Not necessarily how much these will draw under normal use. I think it's really important to point out that this says power limit, not like TDP or TGP or whatever they call it these days. Anyway, AD103 We would expect, it looks like we're seeing a power limit at 450 watts. Now that's the one we're expecting to see, like the 4080. The rumors are pointing to the 102 just being the 4090 and the 103 being the 4080. With the mobile version going up to 175 watts. As we go down the product stack, now again, these aren't necessarily just like the 4070 and the 4060. There's different rumors on these. The different chips could be, sometimes you get multiple SKUs out of the same chip, whatever. We'll see what really happens, but we're seeing 8104 at 400 watts and 8106 at 260 watts. But again, I don't think we need to use the full power cap. So we'll see what happens. This could just be that we're able to push these high on super overclocking models. I'm really interested. I don't mind if there's some disgusting 800 watt top end chip, as long as the normal chips come in more realistic power draw limits for people. Also, it's interesting to see the 800 watt number here, because this same leaker has reported on a 900 watt limit version. Now that was just kind of they've been playing with that, testing it out. It looks like maybe they've settled on 800 watts, or, it's leaks and rumors. Could all just end up not being accurate. Now, speaking of leaks and rumors, I'm seeing reported by Video Cards here, something from Moore's Law is Dead, about a Little Phoenix APU coming up. Now, this is apparently being referred to as a Van Gogh successor, which is interesting, because basically what that means here, a Van Gogh successor. So Van Gogh is the APU used in the Steam Deck. So this appears to be what could be a Steam Deck 2 or some kind of updated version of the Steam Deck APU in the works that would have looks like it would still be 4-core 8-thread according to this. But this would be Zen 4 rather than, isn't the original Steam Deck on like Zen 2 Plus or something like that? I can probably zoom in here a bit. The writing's a bit small. And that would bring 25 to 35% higher PPC over the CPU in the Steam Deck 1 and should boost to 4 gigahertz. And then we're, of course, seeing a RDNA 3 graphics listed on here as well, which again would be better than the RDNA 2 graphics that are in the original Steam Deck. And then this would also could go with a memory controller to get more memory bandwidth. Anyway, the point is, it would be cool to see a Steam Deck successor with even more power. It's already a cool little gadget. I'm on the waiting list. I can't seem to get one. And eBay prices are a little ridiculous, because one of the cool things about the Steam Deck is its good price to what you're getting for it. So anyway, we'll see what comes out of those leaks and rumors. But this not being a leak and rumor, this is official. Remember, we're seeing the RX 6700 non-XT, and originally we'd only seen models listed from Sapphire. Well, it's now looking that Power Color is also bringing in an RX 6700 without the XT branding. And remember, what that means is that we should be getting 10 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory rather than 12 on the XT model, with a 160-bit bus and 2304 stream processors. Now, overall, this should make it, a bit weaker than the XT model. So for me, the question here is, if this falls between the 6650 XT, which officially has, I think, a $400 MSRP, and a 6700 XT, which has a $480 MSRP, what kind of pricing are we going to see on this? I would love to see some of the other ones kind of cut down, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. MSRPs, you can sell under the MSRP anyway if it doesn't sell at the price that it ends up listing at. Now, how about to some CPU rumors? It looks like we're going to be seeing AMD's Ryzen 7000 desktop CPUs on September 15th. And I'm not, so how official is this? Well, this is coming from what looks to be an official AMD slide being given at some sort of a presentation, and then this being leaked out on Twitter. Where you're like, wait, where does it say that? Look, 9/15, September 15th. Now, I don't read Chinese, so I'm trusting these other articles that are reporting on this to have some sort of accurate information here. But it's looking like the report is that that does mean it's going to launch on September 15th with market availability confirmed. Now, this is at least a month before we're expecting AMD's next GPU lineup. So it looks like you might have, a month of desktop CPUs coming out, and then followed maybe the next month with some of the new graphics cards. So this could be an exciting time to build a new AMD system. Now, we could run through some of the expected specs that we've seen officially given from AMD, where we're expecting to see up to 8 to 10% IPC uplift, which combined with higher clocks should lead to over 15% uplift in single-thread apps. We'll see what we get out of all of this. I really want to see it tested. There's been a lot of claims that we're seeing sandbagging from AMD and that their performance will actually be better than this. I mean, for me, I care a lot about gaming performance. And so one thing is, I think when they're listing all these single-thread performance gains, the footnotes are saying that this is in Cinebench, which, to my knowledge, is not particularly cache sensitive. And I think these do get a cache upgrade. So if gaming tends to be more cache sensitive. So I wonder if we actually will see better performance gains in gaming than we might be seeing from some of these numbers. But kind of along with this, we are getting Greymon. So he's a well-known leaker. And this digital monster seems to be telling us that the chips that will be launching with this initial AMD lineup, and again, to be clear, this is a rumor, this is not an official source, saying that we'll get the 7950X, 7900X, 7800X, 7600X, and that the 7700X will not be included in the first lineup. And this is basically just saying it's going to be exactly like the 5000 series, where we didn't get the 7700 cheaper 8-core CPU SKU until much later down the road. So it looks like that may also be the case here if this is to be believed. It looks like he also provided a suggested retail price, although that tweet has apparently been taken down since then. So maybe we shouldn't read too much into the pricing. So I'm not going to go too far into that since he took down his own tweet on that. Now, how about a little more Intel news? Speaking of CPUs this time, well, you can get CPU coolers for the Intel Sapphire Rapids. They're listed on Newegg, but Intel has confirmed that Sapphire Rapids volume ramp up will be later than originally forecasted, and that this could be postponed all the way to the second quarter of 2023. Which is, a lot later than originally planned on those chips. In other news that could affect CPUs and GPUs, TSMC has been announcing some information about their N3 nodes, kind of their timeline for a lot of this stuff. Get out of the way here. So, right here we're in 2022. It looks like they can start, moving into their N6RF and 4P N3. We're seeing getting all the way to N2 by 2025. A lot of info here. But this is about process technology and not like something you're going to stick in your gaming PC. This is just stuff that they will build those things out of. So I'm not going to go too far into the weeds with that. But how about this? I benchmark Forza Horizon 5 on the channel from time to time, and I got to tell you guys, I've been playing this recently with my kids, and I'm annoyed by the anti-aliasing. On my big, beautiful 48-inch OLED screen, I can see even at 4K at the extreme settings, there's a lot of little jaggies. And the game doesn't support TAA. Well, it looks like we will be getting TAA patched in, which will be very interesting to test out and see if that solves some of my problems with all the jaggies. So that looks like it will be coming before the Hot Wheels expansion. It looks like the Series 9 update is coming on June 21st. Now, another thing that's interesting to me here is if the game supports TAA, I wonder if it could then be patched to have like DLSS or FSR 2.0 support. There's no information, no rumors on that. Don't get me wrong here. That's just me speculating. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Now, in other GPU news, it's looking like Nvidia's GeForce GTX 1630, which keeps apparently getting delayed, is showing up in custom Gigabyte models, which would be perfect for mini ITX builders. So if you're like, why would I care about a 1630? The performance is terrible. Well, the idea here would be a small form factor, low power draw, and all of that. Now, I guess this is as Komachi on Twitter leaking listings over at EEC. So anyway, it would be cool to see what we get in the low power, low small form factor listings, and how that might, maybe how does that line up against the Intel Arc GPU that should theoretically be coming, We'll see what happens. Now, are you interested in high refresh rates? Well, I've got a couple of news pieces for you. How about a 540 hertz gaming monitor from AUO, at least reportedly being worked on? But yeah, how would you, even if this is 1080p, is this 1080p? I think it's 1080p. But even at 1080p, something like a 3090 would be struggling to deliver those types of frame rates. That's honestly kind of insane. But there's always the future with our next gen of GPU, and can you even get CPU keeping up with that? I mean, pretty crazy stuff. Depends on the game, I suppose. Now, also in higher refresh rate news, it looks like GeForce NOW has not only added Genshin Impact, but it's also added 120 FPS streaming on 120 hertz Android devices, and PC and Mac apps upgraded to version 2.0.41. And I hope all of you have an excellent weekend.